So here I'll just plug in my story because my mom did exactly this. When we used to go to the toy store, let's say there's this certain toy which costs like 2,000 rupees or 3,000 rupees, and back then my favorite food was shawarma, chicken shawarma. My mom used to tell me, this particular toy can get you 30, 40
Oh
shawarmas,
yes.
right?
Yes.
You really think it's worth 30, 40 shawarmas, and then I used to get to compare two different things.
Look, I read this on a T-shirt somewhere. It's not the number of years in your life, but it's a life in the years. So, like, however long I live, I want to make it like a lively life. Let me put it that way.
Hey,
Hi, Sharon.
long time, man.
I know. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. What are you ordering?
Want to have a coffee? What about you?
I think I'll have a coffee.
Let's go for it.
Hey guys, welcome to the first episode of Life Unscripted by ICICI Prudential Life Insurance. Today we have Mr. Srini. Tell me a little bit about yourself, because I know you're a very senior person in this company, but I would love for the audience to know what do you do exactly? Can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Okay, great. So, I work for ICICI Prudential Life. So it's as the name suggests, in the life insurance space, and I work for the part of the marketing and the product team. So part of the job is to interact with clients, interact with customers, try to find out how life insurance can be a part of their financial life, and then of course, based on all the insights and feedback that we gather from them, try to convert it into maybe product concepts and ideas.
So Life Unscripted, that's such a perfect name because life truly is unscripted. Because people usually are fond of making these 1-year plans, 2-year plans, and interviews love asking this 5-year plan question. But when was the last time you actually thought achieved all the things that you thought you'll achieve in those 1 or 2 years?
Yep, life unscripted. That's the way it is, right?
Yeah.
I guess that's the nature of the beast. We make plans. We go with the belief that those plans will happen.
Yeah.
But then one has to be always alive to the possibility those plans are not going to materialize. So go with the flow.
Yeah.
Be a little bit of an improv script kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, life is unscripted.
Yeah, absolutely. So how does somebody from mechanical engineering shift to finance? How did that happen? How do you know that this is what you love to do?
The one thing I learned in mechanical engineering, which was within 6 months, was that I didn't want to be a mechanical engineer. Valuable life lesson. So I followed that up with an MBA from IIM Calcutta. So I did my internship with a life insurance company.
So you started off your career with insurance itself.
I
from
started
day
off
one.
my career with insurance. I started off my career with ICICI Prudential Life Insurance.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it's been the same company for close to 2 decades now.
Okay. So tell me this. You work in the life insurance industry and you're in a very senior position there. Is it necessary for senior position people in life insurance to have like a six-pack abs? Is it necessary?
There's a short answer and a long answer. Short answer is no, it's not necessary. But the long answer to it is, look, it does take
Well,
effort.
the reason I asked you this is because you are in your 40s and you are in fantastic shape, right? And it's sort of like, the perfect image that you can give out there. Hey, I work in the life insurance industry and look at me, right? Right? Is that like by design? How did this happen?
Single in Goa, and I'm talking about the pre-internet era, pre-social media.
What year was this?
2004.
Okay.
Right? And to top it all, I didn't even have a TV at home because I just started working, right? So it's just me, go to office, come back home by around 7ish, and then wondering what to do. As it so happened, there was a gym next door. So it's sort of becoming a habit. Then I realized that apart from the whole physical fitness part of it, it also just gave me a bit of a discipline and focus in life.
Now we have almost come to the end of the year, right? Where this is December 20th, we're in the last stretch. So let's talk about New Year resolution, right? Because most people, New Year resolution, even mine, if you have to ask me, is to get back into shape, right? I've not been working out for 6 to 8 months. So how do you kind of decide New Year resolutions at this age, looking like this? What's your New Year resolution?
I would say part of the resolution will almost always be around health. Some part of it will be around family. Some part of it will be around work. And some part of it will be around, maybe something apart from all of this. Maybe at this age, it's also something about giving back to society. Some of those aspects also come in.
So can you touch a little bit about how your financial journey has evolved from 24 to 43, like almost 19 years of
Yeah.
working.
So I think one way of looking at these 20 odd years will also be to mirror it with life stage changes. So when I started working, I was single, no dependents, just me. Then a few years later, marriage happened, and then a few years later, parenthood happened.
When did you get married?
I got married when I was exactly on my 31st birthday.
31.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
and
So were you? This is an interesting question here because most people don't take their finances seriously until they get married.
Yep.
Right? Because then they're like, okay, now I have a spouse and I'm going to get kids very soon. Now I'm going to start saving up for my kids.
Yep.
How were you? Like, were you also careless with your money until you got married? Because 24 to 31 is still like 7 years.
I would not say I was careless, but I was definitely unplanned about it. In the sense, things were either just lying dormant in my account, or they were getting consumed. I had some random stuff, but it was not very planned. It was not structured. It
Yeah.
was happenstance. Like someone telling me do this, doing it. Someone telling me do that, doing that. But normally not doing anything.
Yeah.
But coming back to your question, marriage is when I said, okay, look, let's get our act together, right? Let's now start walking the talk. What I've been professing as a person in a financial services company,
Yeah.
put some structure to it.
Yeah.
Goal-based savings started becoming a bit of a theme in my financial plan. Okay, look, this is what I need to set for
Like,
my...
can you elaborate more on what does that mean? Goal-based planning.
Yeah, so goal-based planning is about, generally, when you ask people what do you save for, they don't come out with a concrete answer.
Correct.
They just say, I save.
Most people think of investing as this pot of money that they have.
Yeah.
I just need to make it grow as
Yes,
much as possible.
yes, which is actually good, right? I mean, as long as you're doing something, it's definitely good.
Yeah.
Perhaps a more structured way to do this, Sharan, is to say, look, it's not one giant pot, but let me break it up into smaller pots.
Yeah.
And let me put labels on each of these pots. So label a pot called for my house, label a pot called for my retirement planning, label a pot called for my children's education, and so on and so forth. And then start accumulating money in each pot, and depending on the nature of that goal, for example, something like a children's education for me might start becoming a big thing in maybe 12 or 15 years from now. So the tenure, in this case, it could be 12 to 15 years from now. So making sure that this pot reaches a certain amount of value by that time. I personally think that none of those pots should have only one stream going into it. Everything should ideally have a diversity of streams flowing into that pot.
So how have you diversified your kids' education investments?
So it's primarily through some life insurance policies which have an investment angle to it, a little bit into PPF, and some into market-linked investments, some into direct shares.
Okay.
So all of which I know the horizon is going to be somewhere in that 10 to 11 years kind of a time frame, and something which yields a amount, a corpus at that point in time.
Now, while we're talking about financial goal planning and all of that, one important thing to notice here is that because you said that your kids are going to require this money maybe 11 years from now, 12 years from now, you need to be around for that time to make this money, right? But a lot of people don't consider the scenario that, okay, what if life is not fair? And if I'm not around, then what happens,
Yep.
right? So that brings us to the topic of, okay, having a life insurance product, right? So why do you think that Indians are like very carefree when it comes to this, right? A lot of people don't like to think of this worst case scenario that, hey, any day can be my last, right? So from somebody who has been in this industry for 20 years, what are some shocking things that you can share with the audience as to what happens when you don't really plan this significant, financial product in your life?
Yeah. So there's this one fascinating episode, right, in the Mahabharata, and this is, if you are familiar, it's that part of the book when the Pandavas, they are sent on an exile. They are supposed to spend 13 years in a forest, and one hot summer day, they are in the forest and they're all really tired and thirsty, and they're desperately looking out for water.
Yeah, I know the scene.
And the brothers see this pond of fresh water. It's like fresh and totally inviting. So Yudhishthir, the eldest brother, he sends one of the younger ones to go get some water. The younger one, I think Nakul or Sahadev, goes to the pond and is about to take water when there's a voice. And the voice says, stop before you drink water, answer my question. That looks yummy, by the way. Almost like... So and the brother's like, what the hell? And he just goes and drinks water and he falls dead, apparently, right? So the other brothers like, what just happened? And one by one, they keep coming to the pond. And the same thing happens. They want to get water. There's a voice which says, answer my question before you drink water.
What is the question?
They don't bother. They just
Huh.
like disregard it. They go, drink some water and they go. Finally, it's just the eldest brother, the wisest of them all. So he goes and he first sees all the four brothers lying unconscious. They go, man, what happened? So he says, okay, it's so thirsty. Let me just drink some water to quench my thirst. So he bends down and the voice, same thing happens. Voice says, look, answer my question before you drink water. Yudhishthir, the wise guy, right? So he says, okay, fine, ask your question. So this whole chapter, it's called the Yaksh Yudhishthir Samvad, the conversation between the Yaksh and Yudhishthir. And it's a bit like a Kaun Banega Crorepati, right? A quiz question, a series of them with increasing levels of complexity, 33 questions in all, right? So the Yaksh starts firing away. And remember, no multiple choice. It was like only one question, you have to get it right.
Huh.
He gets first 32 all right, and the Yaksh is like impressed. He says, Yudhishthir, it's awesome. Now I'm going to ask you the toughest question of it all, right? And if you answer this question, your brothers are all back. So Yudhishthir's like, okay, fire away, man. So he says, Yudhishthir, what is the most surprising thing that you see in the world? Okay, what is the most surprising thing in this whole world? So Yudhishthir thinks for a while and he says, every day people see death all around them, and yet they think I am immortal. So, I mean, what I'm trying to say is that this is a truth, social truth or behavioral truth, which was written 3,000 years back,
Yeah.
and nothing much has changed. And it's pretty much across the world, right? And it's not just about this whole.
Not just that, people don't like to think about bad stuff. Like whenever I tell my parents, hey, you should get your health insurance cover is not sufficient. Why are you not having life insurance? They're like, don't talk about this kind of stuff.
Couple of things. One is this. I mean, people don't like to think of negative events happening to them. I think it's more of a evolutionary thing. We're not, I guess, hardwired to think of stuff like that. The second thing that we're not hardwired to think of is in terms of anything which is long term in nature. We are hardwired to think in terms of instant gratification, right? I'm hungry, let me feed myself now. Forget what it means from a health point of view.
Yeah.
So both of these are behavioral biases, not thinking of negative stuff which can happen to us, sickness or death or maybe even a job loss. We tend to not think of that. We tend to keep those thoughts at bay. And anything which means the payoff is going to happen in 15 years or 20 years from now, we tend to postpone it or wait against it in favor of something where the payoff is much faster. Something which can give me quick return, something which can grow my money in like X months or X days and not in terms of years. So both of these are behavioral things, and I think as a life insurance industry, we face this literally every single day because every customer that we meet, we have to nudge them to think of these things.
Yeah.
That stuff can happen to you.
Yeah.
Death is a reality. Sickness is a possibility that you have to be prepared for. And the third aspect is there's going to be a day when you are not going to be working actively, right? Either by choice or by compulsion.
Yeah.
And that's the retirement part of it. So it's beautiful because this whole category is about trying to get people to come face to face with those things which they're not hardwired to think of.
Let's no doubt deep dive into the world of life insurance. Let's say now when it comes to life insurance, there are so many different types.
Yep.
Right. So many different categories. But how do we know what life insurance products do I need?
Super.
Right. And there are two schools of thought. One school of thought says that you should not combine insurance with investment. You just need a simple term insurance policy. Don't confuse the two. And there is another school of thought that, hey, there are also these insurance plus investment products, which can also might give you good returns post-tax. So can you just break that down for the audience?
Sure. Lovely. I just love to talk about this, right? I mean, this is what I've been doing for pretty much
Yeah.
last 2 decades. So first up, you're right. When people think of life insurance, they think of it as one monolithic
Yeah.
product category, right? But actually, in India, all insurance companies offer 3 distinct types of products. Okay, and it's always easy to think of it in terms of 3 distinct types of risk cover. Okay? The first one is the most obvious: a product which covers the risk of you dying too young, right? So that is your term insurance.
Basically, if I've taken a 1 crore term insurance, if I die, my family gets 1 crore.
The objective of this is maybe 1 crore would have been your financial worth over the next 7 to 8 years. So this term insurance policy is supposed to at least take care of the next 6 to 2 years of your financial worth, so that the financial family is not burdened. Emotional loss cannot be repaired, but the financial loss can be partially addressed through this term insurance. I was talking about the monolithic world of insurance, one of which is the risk of dying too early, right? What is the opposite risk, if I have to put it to you?
living too long.
Exactly, right? So the risk of living too long is that, oh man, I'm living to the age of 100 or 120, but my savings ran out, right? It could be whatever life savings I accumulated during my working years, whatever pension form I'm getting, all of that is there only till the time I'm 80. So I have like 40 years or 20 years of living too long. How do I take care of that? So insurance addresses the second risk as well, the risk of living too long. So ours is the only category. Insurance is the only category where you have a specific product. These are called annuity products, where you are guaranteed an income for as long as you live. Right? So if a person lives up to 80 or 90 or 100 or well 120, whatever, the income will keep coming for that many number of years. And this is the only product which can give you a guaranteed income for as long as you're around. So risk of dying too soon, risk of living too long, both these risks covered. Which brings us to the middle block, which is the risk of financial uncertainty. Right? So markets crash, markets go up, interest rates come down, interest rates go up. In all of this, reality of life, which is your day-to-day living expenses, your child's education, purchase of a home, those are realities which are not going to change as per these external factors. Insurance companies, insurance products address the risk of financial uncertainty by having long-term products, right? I'm using the word long-term very consciously because by design, insurance savings products are for people where the savings horizon is 15 to 20 years. Remember those pots we were talking about slightly earlier? Wherever the pot is of a goal, where the horizon is 15 to 20 years, that's the sweet spot for insurance savings. So risk of dying too soon is one, risk of living too long is the other, risk of long-term financial uncertainty is a third risk, which insurance companies cover.
When you talk about these, the second and the third categories that I talked about, like if I don't die or of the financial uncertainties in life, when you look at these long-term insurance plus investment products, usually if you look at the the post-tax returns, it's usually in the single digits, right? It doesn't cross 10%. Like even if it's a 20-year insurance policy, at best you could get like 7-8%. So my point of contention here is, if a person knows how to manage and invest their money, why not just stick to like equity markets and debt products and get that 14-15% returns compounded?
Sure.
So what is your thought on this?
Good question. So two parts to it, right? I think I'll have to link it back to the whole to fitness, right? Since we are in December, people are obviously making their financial New Year resolutions, right? And typically a New Year resolution will revolve around fitness. So then we are here. I can see people jogging by the beach side, right? And so jogging is cardio is one way of keeping fit. Hitting the gym, weight training is another way of keeping fit. Doing yoga is a third way of keeping fit. Swimming and so on and so forth. Now, if you ever have to ask yourself what is better, is it what is good? Is it should I be doing Zumba? Should I be doing yoga? Should I be doing gymming? Should I be what? The way I look at it is, look, do what you're able to do consistently, right? The worst thing which can happen is you try something, you don't see any results, you give it up after a month. You're into February, try something else, nothing happens. So you just like volatile and just moving from one to the other and not sticking to something for long enough. What is the analogy to financial options, right? Do something which you're able to stick to for the long term. Whether it is investing in markets, whether it is investing in a fixed deposit, whether it is being a trader, right? Stick to it long enough. And this is the sweet spot which insurance behaviorally, and the design of the product is it forces the customer to stay on for the long term. That's why I cannot emphasize enough about insurance being specifically for long-term savings. There are a lot of options which give very attractive returns, right? They are able to ride the environment, macro environment, and they give fantastic returns. But the question to ask is, how many of the customers in those instruments actually benefited from that return? And the answer to that would be only a fraction, because no one really stayed on. So if you have the patience, if you have the discipline, if you have the systematic way of looking at something and stay on with it for the whole plan, by all means, any option is a good option. But if you want to address some of those behavioral biases of quick acting either out of fear or greed, then insurance in a way becomes a safety net, because the design of the product removes these emotions out of it. You have to be in it for the long term.
So let's move on to the last leg of the conversation. Now that we've talked about so many things, we talked about your New Year resolutions. We talked about your financial goal-based planning. We've talked about life insurance. Now let's talk about what are the financial resolutions that you have for the upcoming year. Like, what are you trying to achieve when it comes to your money at this stage of your life?
That's a good question, Sharad. I think
Like any desires that you have that you
you're
want to
forcing me
accomplish?
to think. I was sort of planning for the next weekend to do this, but yeah, now that you're asking this question, let me think about it. See, again, life stage that I am at, children's education is quite prominent in the horizon for.
Like it's very, what do you say? This is a stage where midlife crisis could happen.
Yep, maybe
Right.
it has already happened, but I
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah, so yeah, midlife crisis is a reality, right? So yeah,
What exactly happens though? Because I don't have a lot of friends who are in their 40s.
Okay.
Right? But I hear it a lot, midlife crisis. What happens and why does it happen?
Okay, I think midlife crisis is just a cool term.
Ah.
It generally means that your EMIs are shooting up
Ah.
and your kids are getting on your nerves
Ah.
and you're wondering why you got married to your spouse. And remind me once again. I think midlife crisis is a question of is a combination of all these things coming together at some time. And
Like how long do you think you will live or
oh,
want to live?
Wow, that's a lovely question. Look, I read this on a T-shirt somewhere. It's not the number of years in your life, but it's a life in the years. So, like, however long I live, I want to make it like a lively life. Let me put it that way. But talking about pressure, when you hear a lot of these elite athletes speak, and they are asked, look, how do you do in such a high pressure situation? How did you perform? And they say, look, I didn't look at it as a pressure thing. I just wanted to go out there and express myself. They use that a lot, right? Express myself well now. So I think of this as a very nice part of my life where I have so many responsibilities to live up to, right? Responsibility at the workplace, responsibility towards my parents, my siblings, my spouse, my kids, my family. So rather than think of it as a burden, why can't I think of it as a privilege? So the reason why I have so many responsibilities is, well, maybe I'm the one who can deliver on that. So the moment I look at it that way, maybe it's a trick of the mind. I really don't think of it as a pressure or a burden, but I think of it as a privilege to wear with pride. So I guess that's one way I'm tricking myself into it.
So like any expensive purchases that you like making, like what is your guilty pleasure when it comes to spending money?
Maybe the wackiest thing that I've done is perhaps purchase something, but again from a fitness point of view, let's say a kettlebell or stuff like
That's
that.
an investment.
Yeah, that's the way I look at it.
So this is very very refreshing to hear that even though you've achieved this professional and financial success, you're still very very careful with your money, right? So how do you hope to impart this sort of learnings to your kids? Like how can we sort of make the next generation this careful with their money? Like your kids are, what are they? Gen Z, Gen Alpha? What are they called?
Some alphabet, maybe. Yeah.
So
They're going to run out of alphabets to define that decade,
Right.
I guess. See,
Like are there some tactics that you have? Like
so I think I have a few. I mean, at this point of time, I can't really say I'm going to implement this, but there are certain principles that I want definitely to pass on to them. Right. One is everything is a choice, right? And every choice has a consequence.
yeah.
So it's not required for you to get that stuff which catches your fancy, that shiny red toy which catches your fancy. It's a choice you have to make. And ask yourself that if I spend 1,000 rupees on a shiny red toy, could there have been a better usage of this 1,000 rupees? And that better usage can either be whatever gets your fancy. It could be books if you think it's going to be knowledge enhancing, or you could give it to a charitable organization, right?
I understand the concept of money.
Or earning. So for example, I've just now started telling my kid that, look, if you want that, I will have to go to office on Saturday to earn the money for that. So generally trying to plant the thought that,
And they get it? They understand?
Actually my kid said, well, okay, fine, sure, go. So I'm like, okay, I'm not sure if you got the point. So
So here I'll just plug in my story, because when my mom did exactly this. When we used to go to the toy store, let's say there's this certain toy which costs like 2,000 rupees or 3,000 rupees, and back then my favorite food was shawarma, chicken shawarma. My mom used to tell me, this particular toy can get you 30-40 shawarmas,
yes.
right?
Yes.
You really think it's worth 30-40 shawarmas, and then I used to get to compare two different things. So coming back to people who are actually watching this, people who are in their 25, 30-year-old range, what advice would you like to give them in today's India when it comes to their financial health? Any like 1 or 2 tips that you can give to this audience, 25 to 30 years old, very hungry to prove it out there, very hungry to sort of retire early? Like what advice do you have?
First up, congratulations. If you are in India today, I think there is no better place to be in. So if nothing else, you got the genetic lottery of being in a country like India at this point of time. So that's a huge thing, and you should really make this genetic lottery count.
Yeah.
Coming specifically to financials, I would say, guys, think long term is the first point. I've been talking a lot about in the last the entire episode, right? But I can't emphasize this enough. Do not plan for, especially when it comes to financial planning or your health. Don't try to look for the quick wins or the quick fixes. Quick wins may be there, but eventually they might not sustain over a period of time. So get long-term orientation in everything that you do, especially when it comes to financial planning. Second thing is we spoke about the three buckets, right? Risk of dying too soon, the risk of living too long, and the risk of financial uncertainty. Make sure that each of these risks are provided for. How you provide for this risk is absolutely your call, and you have various ways of doing it, but make sure these risks are covered. Last and but not the least, start getting into goal-oriented savings, as in goal-based savings. Start asking yourself, what would be my financial goals 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, and make sure that some part of your financial savings or investments is channelized into each of these goals.
All right. I think that brings us to the end of the show, Srini. Thank you so much for having me on the first episode. And I wanted to say that I've been associated with ICICI since my teenage years. It's an absolute pleasure to be making content with you guys. So thank you so much, and it was wonderful talking to you. And guys, if you have any questions about life insurance and how to plan for it, these guys are the absolute experts. Drop your questions down in the comment section and they'll answer them for you. All right, guys, I hope you guys had a wonderful watching session.